You want the hammer?
I want the hammer.
Then go get the hammer.
Okay, enough of that nasty.
Baby, no.
For a long time, it looked like Ride Along 3 was never going to happen. Fans kept hearing small updates over the years, but nothing ever turned into a real movie. Now, things are finally moving again because Universal has brought in a brand new writer to take another shot at the script. That means the project is officially back in early development, although anyone who has followed this franchise knows that doesn't guarantee the cameras will start rolling anytime soon. Ice Cube and Kevin Hart are expected to return as the hilarious duo that made the first two movies so popular. Tim Story, who directed both previous films, is also coming back, while producer Will Packer is once again involved. On paper, that sounds like the perfect reunion because the creative team that built the franchise is mostly intact. But there's one thing people shouldn't ignore. This exact group has spent nearly a decade trying to make Ride Along 3, and every attempt has fallen apart before reaching production. The biggest update this time is the addition of Daniel Gold, the writer behind the comedy series Workin' Moms. Universal has hired him to write a fresh screenplay instead of continuing with older drafts that apparently never worked. That's probably the smartest decision the studio could make, because if something has been stuck for almost 10 years, it usually means the script has never fully clicked. Sometimes starting over is much better than endlessly rewriting the same idea. Even though this sounds like positive news, people should probably keep their expectations under control. Hollywood has a habit of announcing projects that spend years in development without ever getting made. Plenty of sequels have been announced with exciting casts and directors, only to disappear quietly after the headlines fade away. Ride Along 3 has already followed that exact pattern for years, so until production actually begins, some skepticism is completely fair. Still, Universal clearly has good reasons for wanting another sequel because the first two movies made serious money. The original Ride Along, released in 2014, earned around $155 million worldwide. Considering its relatively modest budget, that was a massive success. Then, Ride Along 2 arrived in 2016 and brought in another $125 million. Although it didn't quite match the first movie's numbers, those earnings were still impressive enough to justify another installment. A huge part of that success came from the chemistry between Ice Cube and Kevin Hart. Their personalities couldn't be more different on screen, and that's exactly why audiences enjoyed watching them together. Cube played the tough, serious cop who had very little patience, while Hart constantly brought nervous energy, non-stop talking, and chaotic decision-making. That contrast carried both films because the jokes usually came from how differently these two characters handled every situation. Finding comedic chemistry like that isn't easy. A bunch of action comedy movies try pairing two popular actors together, but most never develop the natural back and forth that makes audiences laugh without forcing every joke. Cube and Hart managed to make even simple conversations entertaining because their timing worked so well together. That's probably the biggest reason Universal refuses to give up on the franchise. But there's another reason this sequel has struggled for so long, and it has less to do with the actors than with the movie industry itself. The theatrical comedy has changed dramatically over the past decade. Studios simply don't invest in big screen comedies the way they used to because audience habits have shifted toward streaming services. Instead of paying for movie tickets, many people now wait to watch comedies from home. That industry change has hurt comedy more than almost any other genre. Big action movies, superhero films, horror movies, and animated features still bring crowds into theaters. Comedies, on the other hand, often perform better on streaming platforms where viewers can casually watch them with friends or family. Because of that, major studios became much more cautious about spending money on theatrical comedy releases. Netflix and Prime Video stepped into that space, while traditional studios stepped back. Over the past several years, both streaming platforms have invested heavily in comedy projects featuring recognizable stars. Kevin Hart himself has become one of the biggest examples of this shift because many of his recent movies premiere directly on streaming instead of receiving major theatrical releases. The same trend has happened with comedians like Will Ferrell and Adam Sandler. That change makes Ride Along 3 a slightly risky project. The franchise was built during a time when theatrical comedies could still become major box office hits. Directors who know their actors well usually spend less time figuring out character dynamics because they've already established that foundation. Story is also working with Kevin Hart again on Netflix's upcoming comedy 72 Hours, so their creative partnership remains active. Producer Will Packer has stayed incredibly busy as well. His latest romantic comedy, You, Me, and Tuscany, starring Halle Bailey and Regé-Jean Page, recently premiered through Universal. His continued relationship with the studio probably helps keep projects like Ride Along 3 alive, because successful producers often have the influence needed to push long-delayed films back into development. Ice Cube hasn't exactly been sitting around waiting either. He recently appeared in War of the Worlds, while also playing himself in the recent Anaconda reboot. Kevin Hart has continued starring in one project after another across both theaters and streaming platforms. So scheduling everyone together has probably been another obstacle because each of these people remains extremely busy with other commitments. Daniel Gold also arrives with growing momentum. His spec script Tough Guys reportedly attracted major interest before landing at Amazon MGM Studios, with Ryan Gosling and Will Ferrell attached to star. That kind of attention suggests Universal didn't simply hire the next available writer. They specifically brought in someone whose work has generated excitement across the industry. Even with all these pieces finally coming together, this project still has something to prove. Development announcements happen every year, although many never turn into completed movies. Fans have learned not to celebrate too early because Hollywood's development process is filled with projects that sound exciting until they quietly disappear. Another brutal reality is that comedy has become much harder to get right. Audiences have endless entertainment options now, so average jokes aren't enough anymore. Social media delivers funny content every single day, which means theatrical comedies need stronger writing than ever before. Simply putting famous comedians together doesn't guarantee laughs. Recent comedy releases have repeatedly shown that recognizable stars cannot rescue weak material. That's exactly why the screenplay will determine whether Ride Along 3 succeeds or fails. The cast already has proven chemistry, the director knows the franchise, the producer understands the audience. None of that matters if the story feels lazy. After waiting nearly 10 years, viewers expect something that justifies the delay rather than making them wonder why it took so long. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one. And don't forget to like this video, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to our channel to stay in the loop. And if you want, you can share your thoughts about this video in the comments section down below.